Hi, welcome to Miss Trice's art class again. We're going to continue with our watercolor. We're going to do the flat wash and the resist that we started in the last video. If you remember, we have the 6th panel here with the different sections. We're going to work on these 2 sections today. In this section, I have sketched very lightly a little scene. We're going to paint that. And I want to do the resist today because if remember I told you last time that if you leave the resist on for too long, it can affect your paper when you go to remove it. So I'm going to start with this upper one here. I'm going to take and paint, because watercolor is painted in layers, I'm going to go ahead and paint on top of this. I have a little barn and a tree. I want to lay this down a little so it doesn't run too much. I wanted to put a little violet in the sky up here. I don't want it to be too dark all the way down. And then I'm going to take some water. I'm going to blend that down and get a little bit lighter, a little bit like the graded wash that we did the other day. Bring it down to the tops of the mountains and just kind of stop there with the sky. It's a very simple process here. Now when you paint in watercolor, you cannot paint right next to something that you just painted because it will bleed into it and cause something called a bloom, which looks a little bit like a flower. And some people use those on purpose, but we don't want those today. So I'm going to skip down. I'm going to do a little bit on the grass. Now greens can be tricky. If you just buy a tube of green and use it, it's okay. But if you mix your own greens, you can end up with a lot nicer color than if you just take the things out of the tube. Now we know that yellow and blue make green. I want this grass to be a pretty yellowish green, so I'm going to start with this here and put some of that in. We don't want to go too dark yet. We will build that up later as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this little green here for the grass. Some on the other side over here. A little yellower than that, I think. Now I could have painted the whole thing yellow and then layered other colors on top, but we're just practicing, so I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. This watercolor can be a little bit intimidating when you first start out. Okay, so there we just have a wash there of the yellow. Green. Yellow, green, a little bit on there. We'll leave the road alone until later. Now let's see, how about we do a little bit with the barn. Blue and brown make a lovely gray. I think I might have told you that in the last video. So let me get a nice gray here with the blue and the brown. It's a little too blue. And let's do some gray on here and let it kind of blend down. We're going to have our light source coming from this side over here. I'm just going to come down here a little bit with the barn, and we will add more detail to that later. Now in order to make the barn look like one side is straight and one side, I'm going to dab that a little bit. You need this side to be darker here to get that edge of the building. A lot of people just draw a pencil line, but you don't need a line. What you need is a shadow side and a lighter side. You see how that starts to look like a barn. Now, the other thing that people don't realize most of the time is that the barks of trees are more gray than they are brown. So I'm going to take some of the same gray and I'm just going to very lightly put some of that onto the tree, as you can see. And maybe some branches up in here in the foliage. Okay. Now while this is drying, I'm going to go ahead down to our sailboat on the bottom. And I want to do a pretty blue sky on the top here. And paint right over the resist this nice blue sky. painting over the resist. We're not going to remove the resist yet. And a little darker at the top. Remember I told you the sky is darker and gets lighter as it comes down to the horizon. So we're getting a little lighter here as we come down. Okay. Now the water, I want that to be a little bit more tropical, so I'm going to add a little yellow into the blue to make it sort of greenish. Maybe a little more than that. Kind of a greenish blue. I like that color. I'm going to come back later and add maybe some turquoise kind of on top. But this will give us a little layer here first. Okay. Alright, now while that's drying, I can come back up here and I can add a little bit to the tree. Let's put some foliage on this tree here. I don't want to paint, leave some of that under paint show through a little bit. You know, we don't do lollipop trees. We have to break up the outer edges so they have more interest. Our mountains are going to be sort of a cross between the purple and a blue-green color. So violet, you use red and blue to get violet. Now we're mixing all our own colors. Later on we'll be using paints that have some of the colors that are pre-mixed. A little bit more than that. No, this, just a basic little violet kind of color here. Because the mountains are farther away and we want them to look a little bit different. It's kind of a gloomy day. We don't have a lot of bright sun going on here. Okay. Now we're going to let those dry, and in the next video I'll show you the next step. Thank you.